have this old tattered quilt that's in really rough shape that I really want to keep out of the landfill. It just deserves to be saved. It was hand pieced and hand quilted and was just gorgeous. Unfortunately, I think it got washed and it disintegrated. But I still think there's some things I can salvage from this quilt. I featured this in a Lessons from an Old Quilt. I will put a link to that video below in the first comment and in the description if you want to check it out. Today I'm going to show you how to make a zipper pouch out of a section of this old quilt. On my last video on how to make a zipper pouch, I had a lot of comments on how to line a zipper pouch. So today on this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to line a zipper pouch. Now you don't have to own an old quilt that you want to cut up or save to do this. You can use whatever fabrics you have. The technique is the same, my materials are just a little different. So let's get started saving this beauty from the landfill. Because the center of the quilt is so tattered, I'm going to focus on the borders or the edges of the quilt to make my zipper pouch. And I'm going to cut 2 panels that measure around 10 by 7 because I want my finished piece to be around 8 by 6. So 8 inches long, 6 inches wide. Like this one, my sample that I made. We are going to cut from this section here, and I promise that even with these open seams and everything, it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. Okay, so I'm going to line this up. This ruler happens to be 10 inches wide, which is going to be perfect. So I just have to line it up on the 7. I'm not going to go into the border of this. You could put that maybe at the top or the bottom, but I'm not going to for this project. I'm just going to kind of line it up, sort of centered. I also want to make sure it's straight, looks good. And this is so hard to cut a quilt, isn't it? Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, I think I got all the pieces. I did, so I just have to do that final one. I'm going to move my ruler up and go to the side here. Looks good. 1 thread. All right, 1 piece is cut. Now that I have this piece cut, I can just slide it down here to another section and line it up. Let's go right here. Lay my ruler right on top of that and cut around. If I trim some of the edges, that's okay. Not a big deal. But you can see that now I'll have just about identical pieces, and then we just have this bottom piece that I'm just going to hand cut. Again, it's an approximate because we are going to be trimming them up. All right, now we have our 2 pieces here. So our next step is to take them apart. And I'm going to carefully remove these stitches. And I know it's the hand stitching, but it's going to be beautiful and worth it in the end. I have an old seam ripper that was my grandmother's that I love to use when I do stuff like this. I don't know, it just reminds me of her. And if you have a quilt that is in better condition than this one, you might not have to do this step, but as you'll see, this batting is really disintegrated, and I'll show you that after I remove all these stitches. I'm going to do that with both of these. I will meet you back here when that's finished. So these are apart. You can see, look at that. Oh my goodness, it's so disintegrated. And this is the backing. Now for my sample, I use the backing for my lining, which I'm going to do again. So I am going to press this as best as possible. There is a seam in this particular one, which I think just adds interest. You can choose another piece if you want to, or even use new fabric. So I'm going to pull this old batting off. Okay, to this one. And you can see there's quite a bit of damage on these. That's okay, it's going to work out wonderfully. Next step is to pick out a fabric to go behind it. I found this reproduction print that I loved. I thought it really went well. And all I'm going to do is layer this old piece on top. And you can see it kind of just blends in. Now, if you wanted a contrast, of course, you could use a different fabric so you could see that it wasn't peeking through. But for me, I kind of like that it just blends in and goes with this. So I just roughly cut them about the same size. We're going to next layer these on some scraps of batting. This is a great way to use up your scrap batting. So I have a piece of batting, the fabric that's going to go underneath this damaged quilt top, and then the quilt top, and I'm sandwiching that. Might fit that way. Yeah, we'll do it that way. I'm just going to take my scissors and cut. Let me line that up a little bit better. That's one unit that I'm going to quilt. I'm going to do the same with this unit. And I'm going to take these to the machine and machine quilt them within an inch of their life. So I'm going to use yellow thread and I'm just going to quilt back and forth all over this. I'm going to do it on the diagonal. You wouldn't have to, you can do it however you want, but it's going to make this all one, and these holes hopefully won't be pulled out much further, but you'll still get the essence of it being an old quilt. Okay, here they are. They are quilted and quilted and quilted. It also has this wonderful texture, but you can see it's stretched some and is a little wonky. So we're going to straighten it up and then start adding our zipper. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my ruler and I'm going to clean up one edge, and I'm going to measure from these points out and make sure I do the same on this one. Okay, once I have both of those done and they look pretty accurate, I'm going to measure my 6.5 inches. Now remember, I want it to be 6 inches wide. I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each end. So I'm going to make it 6.5 inches. Line that up and cut. And I'm going to do the same to this one. Okay, now I'm going to do the sides and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to measure the same distance from this point out on both of these. I can just double check by laying this on top. Looks good. Flip it over. Going to measure 9.5, which I am just going to make it. And I can go a little shorter. There's really no rules with this. You can make it smaller, you can make it bigger. Okay, so here they are, our two panels. And we are going to, actually they go that way, we are going to put the zipper in next. So along with these two panels, which are our front and back, I also have two of the lining pieces pressed and cut to size. So the same size as these, 9.5 by 6.5. So now it's time to assemble. I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to decide what I want for the top of my bag, and I think I'm going to have this blue at the bottom. The original one I made just to test out the pattern isn't quilted quite as much, as you can see. I wish I would have quilted it a little bit more, which is why I did these a little bit heavier, but I also put the blue at the top, and I think I would like it like that. So that's the way we're going to do this one. So we need to pick a color for our bag, and I was pulling a few, I don't know what color to use. This is always one of my hardest things to figure out. Kind of like the pink. The blue is really nice. Here's a nice yellow. I like this yellow. I don't know. Let me know in the comments which one you think looks best. We also have a white, which is kind of nice. I think I'm going to go with the white for this one. So we're going to take our zipper, and I like to use oversized zippers. I get these on Amazon, especially if you're just learning. Don't spend a ton of money on these. They can be pricey. So you're going to line up this top of the zipper with the zipper down. You know what? I'm going to use a different color because I think it's hard to see the white on screen. So let's go with this green. I think you can see it a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the right side, or the zipper side, down, and I'm going to make sure that there's overhang on both sides. Okay, keep the zipper closed, and I'm going to clip along this edge. Right on that edge. Now some people like to glue it, some people like to use the adhesive tape. You can do anything you'd like. This is the way I do it. Next, what I like to do is I like to do a basting stitch right on my machine. I'm going to make my stitch length around 4 to 5 and just baste that on there. You're not going to see these stitches, so it's not a big deal. Okay, you can see it is basted, and that's just going to keep that on there. Next, we're going to take our lining piece and put it right side down. So we have the zipper face side down to facing the front of our bag, or the back of the bag, depending. We're going to take this lining piece, it's hard to tell, but this is the right side. I'm going to put the right side down right along that edge, and I'm going to clip that in place. So you can see it's sandwiched in there. So we have the base, we have our zipper face side down, and our lining face side down. I'm going to put my zipper foot on my machine, and I'm going to sew right down, right up against that zipper. Okay, so my zipper foot is on. I'm going to move the needle over to the furthest spot on the left, and I'm going to run my zipper foot right along that zipper and stitch. Okay, so it should look like this. And I'm just going to finger press that down on both sides, making sure that all lines up. And then I like to go through and top stitch along this edge. I leave my zipper foot on. You probably don't need to. I do recenter that needle, and I top stitch at a stitch length of 3. As you do this, you just tug it down. Just like that. Now that we have one side done, we have to do the other side. And we're going to just take this piece, the other side of the pouch. So this is one side of the pouch. We're going to take the other side of the pouch and put it right sides together along the other side of the zipper. So you can see it right here, right on the other side. And we're going to clip that in place and then again, baste that down. I just find basting makes it so much easier. So I'm just going to clip it and then baste. And I'm making sure it's lined up on the edges here too. So, all right, so I'm going to run that through. That is basted on, you can see right there how it is. Now we're going to flip this whole thing over so the lining piece is on the upside. And I'm going to take the other lining piece and put it right here against the top. I'm going to clip this into place, and you can see it is clipped. I'll show you the inside, just like that. The inside of this, just like that. I'm going to stitch along this edge using my zipper foot, just like before, and I'll meet you back here. This is all stitched in place, and now you have something that looks like this. Okay, so before I go on to attaching all the sides, I am going to top stitch along this edge. Now both are top stitched and it's laying nice and flat. We still aren't going to cut this. I don't cut this till the absolute very end, but I am going to open it up a little bit. Just about like that, maybe a little more. Next, I'm going to take the front sides and match them up. So I'm putting front side, or I guess outsides to outsides, just like this. And then I'm taking the lining right sides together, just like this. We're going to line everything up and clip. And I'm going to wait to show you how to do the zipper here until I get everything else lined up. And for the lining, it's a little bit flimsy, so I am going to use pins to line that up. So now we're at the zipper portion. I'm going to line these two up so they're even. I'm going to put a clip in. Now notice I have the teeth facing towards the inside of the lining, just like that. And I'm going to be real careful when I sew this that I make sure that they are lined up. Same thing over here. I want them to be even. So I'm going to fold that over a little. and get those lined up with the teeth facing in. I'm going to sew around the perimeter of this entire thing, but I need to leave an opening, and I'm going to leave an opening down here at the bottom. I'm going to mark it so you can see. And usually I leave maybe 5 or 6 inches. I do have to pull this whole thing through, and this fabric is still kind of fragile being so old. So I'm going to start stitching here, back stitch, go all the way around, making sure that I'm tucking the zipper teeth towards the lining. Go all the way around, back stitch when I get back to the other side of the opening I'm leaving, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, this is all sewn. Now before I trim any of my corners or anything like that, or even trim off my zipper, I'm going to turn it just to make sure everything is okay. So I'm going to reach my hand in and turn it around. I do that for everything like this just because I don't want to cut something and then have to go back and try to figure out how to fix it. Look at how cute. Look at how cute it is. All right, I'm going to turn it back around, trim it up, show you how to do that. Okay, it's turned back around. I'm going to trim it up. Now for the zippers, I do like to use regular scissors. I just trim them off. And then for everything else, cutting these corners, just going to angle them. I cut off the point and then angle going up to the point. Now we could box the corners. I'm not going to do that on this tutorial, but you could absolutely do that if you wanted to. I think with this quilt, I don't think it would look as nice just because of the design, but it's definitely something you can do. All right, here we go. I'm going to turn it around again. Then I have a chopstick I like to use to push out those points. There are all kinds of things on the market that you could use, but chopsticks work just as well. Push out where that zipper came together. Put your lining back in, clean up your space a little bit. And then you have something that looks like this. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, and the texture is so nice. I love it. Now, the hole in the middle here in the center of the inside, all you're going to do is, it should fold in nicely by itself. And you can just stitch that shut by machine, just fold it under, press it nice, and stitch along that edge, or you can do it by hand, which is probably what I'll do. I'll just put some whip stitches in that to make it nice, stuff it back in, and you have an adorable zipper pouch. And you can see that fabric isn't perfect. There are some holes, but with all that quilting on there, it's going to keep it nice and secure and pretty for years to come, giving this quilt a brand new life. I hope you enjoyed seeing how to make these adorable zipper pouches out of an old quilt. I am going to be making a bunch more projects out of this old quilt. How many projects do you think I could make out of it? If you want to see any other projects made out of this old quilt, please let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to show you some more. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew. I'll see you real soon.